Hi, John. Thanks for
Hey.
having me. Pleasure to join you
Yeah,
tonight.
no, thanks for
Mm.
coming on. So I might get a little bit of lag on my side. It'll fix during the stream, hopefully. But yeah, I'm super excited to get you on because I know that you're one of the top kind of traders in international and politics and political
Mm.
markets. But you do a wide variety of stuff, and you were one of the first big traders, I think, on Polymarket. And I know because I know kind of like you're known for, you started with, I think about, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 16K, and you were
Yeah,
able to kind of leverage that into like 300,000 plus, basically.
that's that's correct.
Well, yeah, which is a huge accomplishment in the prediction market space. And yeah, so I was excited to get you on and just talk to you. And I guess to kick this off, maybe if you want to just give kind of an intro about yourself and how you got into prediction markets and just what your kind of edge is.
hmm Yeah, sure. Happy to talk about that. So my entry to prediction markets was super random. Um, yeah, one day I just came across Polymarket without having any prior knowledge about existence of prediction markets whatsoever. And I just found it interesting because when I saw prediction markets, poly markets specifically, it reminded me of a book that I read once, maybe 5, 10 years beforehand, uh, called Super Forecasting. I'm not sure if you heard of that book. It's by a professor, I think his surname was Ted Block, and he did research into what makes groups of forecasters better than others. So, what makes a good predictor? And I remembered some content of that book. So, when I saw Polymarket, I thought, hey, I know a little bit about it. I know what makes uh, a good person to perform well in prediction markets. So, I thought I would give it a shot. Yeah. And that was close to a year and a half ago. Mm.
And do you do prediction markets full time, or are you more part time? And if you are part time, because one of the things we were talking about on our Twitter chat is just managing like daily life, but also keeping an edge in prediction markets. So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
you have kind of experience with that, on your end, and how obviously you take prediction markets very seriously, but how do you balance your daily life? What is your kind of like trading routine when you approach these markets?
Yeah, it's a very important topic. Thanks for bringing it up. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, and I'm still in the process of learning how to deal with it. So, obviously, so to answer your first question, is it a full-time job? No, I also have my own business where I do a variety of stuff, and currently maybe I spend 60 to 70% on prediction markets and the rest on my other business. And then there's of course family and friends and social life and travel and whatnot, whatever passions you might have, right? That make life interesting and worthwhile living. And the yeah, the challenge with prediction markets is that you can make money anytime and things can happen around the clock. And whenever you're offline and not trading, you're missing opportunities. And therefore, in a competitive, gamified world of prediction markets where anyone can see your P&L and your accomplishments, and for a person like me that loves to perform well and accomplish success, it's quite tempting to be focused on making more money and having fun while doing it and learning and finding new opportunities. And as such, um, I try to keep myself in check and to make sure that I get enough offline time, that I get enough time with my family and my friends. And I try to get more and more distance to the financial aspect of the prediction markets. So for instance, right now I'm just back from essentially 3-week holiday, and during those 3 weeks, I was fully offline for 2 weeks. I left my phone and laptop back home, and I went for holiday without even having a smartphone with me. And doing things like this, where I really get to, take a proper break and don't stress about what's happening out there, that feels like something very important for me. Mm.
Yeah, you need those. I feel like that. It's difficult too because you're always plugged in, especially with the type of markets you're trading. You're always kind of have to be plugged into these cycles, these narrative cycles, which
Yeah,
definitely it does. I can imagine at some point it's like, okay, I need like a I need some time to just unplug and take it easy for a bit. Um,
exactly. And one thing, and maybe that's interesting for the people listening, uh, a tip. What I didn't do in my early part, in my early months on Polymarket, I didn't consider and I didn't evaluate when entering a market how much research and oversight is needed for that particular market. And therefore, I would sometimes get into markets that required a lot of oversight, a lot of work, a lot of constant research. For instance, Hamas, Israel ceasefire. There could be developments basically every day and news coming in that would affect the fair value and what's likely to happen and not. And if you wanted to stay on top of that, that would require daily research. And some other markets, let's take, I don't know, will Trump win a Nobel Peace Prize? That requires very little research on my end, and I can make a sizable bet and sort of forget about it. So what I'm doing these days is that for the markets I enter, I evaluate them based on few criteria. So I evaluate them on the oversight and work needed after I place a bet to keep track of it. And then I try to evaluate my own edge. So how comfortable and confident I am with this particular bet. And then I try to eliminate the markets where my edge is very marginal or questionable, but a lot of work is required. So in that sense, I try to prioritize my time to get the most out of it. Mm.
Yeah, my question to you also is like, do you find that there at this point, do you find that there's a culture, if you know a lot of traders, for instance, is there an alpha culture in prediction markets right now? Like, is there networks like if you know traders, does that do you ever share tips with people? Do you have any sort of alpha groups that you're a part of? Like what is the or does that culture not really exist yet in PMs?
Yeah. For me, the community around prediction markets is a really important asset. I'm part of a few servers on Discord, plus I'm collaborating with other traders via direct contact with them. And establishing a network of people that I can trust in their expertise and where we like each other and can collaborate is something really substantial and really, really helpful. Um, it's great to have to know people that are good in areas where I miss the know-how, miss the knowledge.
I think we might have gotten a
Probably
little
have
bit of
ongoing, yeah, John?
oh, okay, good. I think we got like a little bit of a disconnect. Sorry about
Hmm.
that.
That's all right. Should I
Um,
continue? I'm not sure if you lost me at some point.
Yeah, I lost you. Yeah, apologies about that. Yeah, I lost you for a little bit. But I think it was you were talking about. the community and kind of like how it's gotten to a helpful point, and then we had some lag and
Mhm.
it tuned out.
Yeah,
So I apologize for that.
that's all right. Yeah, so I'm messaging directly with maybe 20, 30 people over a course of a week, perhaps, or 2 weeks. So there's a lot of messages going back and forth with people with whom I have some rapport, people to whom I owe for great tips I received from them, or with people that, receive tips from me, and then we have this collaborative interactions. And then um, I also track what other top traders are doing, and I have a special tool for that. And then I can see what they're investing in. And then if I have a question, hey, why are you betting on this and why are you paying this price? Then I try to reach out directly to them and have a conversation about it. And hopefully we both get smarter through it. So in that sense, Discord servers that I'm part of and direct contact with fellow traders is substantially important. And I wouldn't be able to perform as well as I do so far if I wasn't part of those networks and didn't establish connections with those other traders.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I don't think a lot of traders do that. I don't think a lot of traders are going out there. At least I don't do that. I don't think to go out there and kind of look at traders and direct message them about like what their mindset is. But I think I think that you can do that more so in prediction markets because of just the nature of prediction markets. It's like, there's a binary resolution,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously, you get an advantage by getting in a trade, like earlier, but I do feel like there is more opportunity to be helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that. And at the end of the day, it's again about a critical mindset, a critical mind. We don't know what we don't know until someone shows us some more light into that area that we were unaware of. And as such, I think it's really helpful to be curious about our opponents, so to say, the people that bet against us. What is their logic? What are their arguments? And rather than assuming that we're the smart ones, it's about becoming curious who the other party is and what is their logic, and then really trying to, be a devil's advocate for a moment and step into their shoes and be like, okay, what is their best case and why? And then even talk to those people and try to figure out what is their logic and discuss with them. So that's something I try to do, and I found that very helpful. Some platforms even offer, an overview, like for instance, on Bet More, you can take a look at average or median P&L of the top people betting on one side and average median P&L of people betting on the other side. So you also can get a bit of a feel for where the smart money is. Is it betting yes or is it betting no, etc.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of on that note, I'm curious about like I think we talked a little bit about this on the Twitter chat, but your kind of best wins and your losses. So I think one of the losses that you were, or one of the wins that you were talking about, which I'd be interested in explore. Actually, there's two. So there's one market that I saw that you had huge upside in, which was the kind of like Trump meeting Putin for a second time in September. And you
Yeah.
did really well on this market. You had like an 100% gain, I think, or almost an 100% gain. And then the other market, which you were talking about, which was fun, was the tax on tips market. So I'm not sure, I'm going to kind of leave it up to you which one you want to kind of go into. I'd be interested in hearing both for those two reasons. But like yeah, like I'm curious to hear like you talk about your mindset with either of those trades that you made.
Yeah. Happy to talk about it. Um, let's see. Is there? I was wondering whether we can see a graph. of this market on the tips, and but I'm not sure where to find it right now. But let's maybe just talk about it. So what happened was that um, cutting and eliminating the tax on tips was one of the crucial campaign promises by Trump, right? So when he won the election, the question became when will he manage to implement that promise? And as was the case with a lot of his promises, Polymarket created a lot of markets. Will this happen within 100 days? And one of those markets was, will Trump eliminate the tax on tips within the first 100 days of his presidency? And um, early on, I took a sizable no position for a very simple fact that uh, Trump, as a president, doesn't have authority over taxes. That sits with Congress. And for Congress to remove such a tax, that would have to happen as part of the reconciliation bill, which would be extremely unlikely for a reconciliation bill to be negotiated and passed within first 100 days. That would be very unusual. And therefore, just for this very simple fact, there was huge value to be won just by betting against that promise, knowing the division of power between Trump administration and Congress. And what made this bet really interesting, unless you have a question.
No, no, no.
Mhm.
I'm good. I do have one question, but I can save it till the end.
Okay. Mhm. So what made me make a huge win on this one was that shortly after Trump won the election and he was already inaugurated, if I remember right, he made a trip to Nevada. And as we know, Nevada's economy relies a lot, or more like comparatively more, on tips, as there is a huge service sector. And therefore, not having the tax on tips is especially important for voters in a state like Nevada. So when he went to Nevada to give a speech after his inauguration, a lot of people were expecting that he would announce that he cuts the tax. And what made things even more interesting is that it was announced before he made the speech that he would talk about the tax on tips. So a lot of people went on, wow, tomorrow Trump is canceling the tax on tips. But again, the division of power was still applying. However, with Trump, you never know. Maybe he will do something illegal that the courts later will say was illegal. And therefore, there was some doubt because the market would still resolve yes if Trump attempted to cut this tax on tips. However, I believed at the time that a chance of him doing such a move and taking an action on such a tax where the authority lies with the Congress was very low. But during his speech, the price for Trump eliminating tax on tips went down to, I think, 40 cents. So you could make 150% profit within 2 months or so, and perhaps 100% within a month, because I mean, it didn't take that long for people to realize that this indeed has to go for a reconciliation bill that is indeed unlikely to happen within 100 days. So that was an example of a market where if you had the balls to actually bet just before his speech that he would not announce that he's cutting the tax, but rather he would again promise that he would do that, then you could make a huge win. And that's what fortunately happened for me.
Yeah, I think it's also just representative of how important it is about when you get in, right? Like
Mm,
it's like I never pay attention to this, and I don't
mm,
think it would be surprising if a lot of new prediction market traders didn't pay attention to this. Like the time you get in is so important. Like so with the Trump. See the market. See the other market that I'm really fascinated by with you is the Putin meeting Trump market, and you because you got in on a really good price.
Yeah.
I think it was 50 cents, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
Yeah.
wondering when you got in on that. Like, what was the entry for that? Because I remember vaguely that there was a lot of bearishness on the Putin Zelensky summit happening. I don't think it ever happened, but
Mhm.
did that affect that market? Is that how you were able to get in on that price? What was the kind of like the timeline on that?
Yeah. So what mattered for this market a lot is being able to differentiate between how to interpret information coming from the American sources around the Trump administration and Trump himself, and how to interpret information coming from the Russian side and from Putin's advisor, Ushakov, and other people around him. Um, what we've observed over the last at least year and a half since I've been following it is that you can pretty much trust the Russians when they say whether they're gonna meet or not. So, Trump, when we had the first market about will Trump meet with Putin, which was like a long time ago. I think that was back in February, if I'm not mistaken, when Trump said, "Yeah, I'll meet by the end of the month with Putin." He said that somewhere mid-February. So there was a lot of talk that they would have met already back in February. Uh, all throughout that period when Trump was saying, "Yeah, we're preparing the meeting, it's going to happen very soon," when you actually looked at what the Russians were saying, they were saying, "Yeah, those like such a meeting is not just a meeting for a coffee. There's a lot of preparation that need to happen, a lot of pre-agreements. It's not something that can happen just tomorrow. We have to see whether we have enough." Agreement on crucial topics, then we can talk about the dates. They were very conservative in their communication. So from that situation back in February, I've learned that, and also observing their communication afterwards, I've learned that uh, Trump can often pump a market by being over enthusiastic because he also does politics where he tries to enforce the reality by pronouncing that reality. So he says a meeting is happening, or I want to for a meeting to happen, which might increase the chances of such a meeting happening indeed. But he often does that without maybe due diligence on whether the other side actually wants to meet him. So in short, what was happening with this market where I made quite a bit was that while the Trump was saying, "Yeah, I'm open to meet again," and so on, if I remember right, the Russians were very conservative again about such a possibility. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's an interesting take too. It's like it gets into the whole idea. And I was having another conversation on this live stream with Domer, I think.
Mhm.
But basically, I was talking about the fact that like we're getting to this point where it's like you're seeing more reflexivity between prediction markets and real world outcomes. And
Yeah,
when we get into Trump, for instance, right? Like, at what point is Trump going to pump a prediction market to
yeah,
make it look like the outcome is going to happen? And I was
yeah.
actually I was kind of like want to get your opinion on that. And I
Mm.
saw something, and this ties into the NYC mayoral election. There's no merit to this article at all, but there was an article that came out today. It's just to demonstrate how people are starting to think about this. It's an article that came out today about the NYC mayoral election, talking
Mm.
about how like maybe there's maybe like these political campaigns, whether it's Mamdani or Cuomo or whoever, they're starting to really reference Polymarket and Kelshi a lot to a
Mm.
degree where it's like it's almost funny how much they reference these prediction markets in the news because they're like, look, guys, like the authority is saying it. And it's like at
Yeah.
some point, like, are these markets being pumped by the actual actors? Um, so yeah, kind of a broad, very broad question, but just like interesting. It's an interesting kind of thought on your point, I think.
Yeah. No, you're pointing to a very interesting conversation indeed. Um, um, you remember how Trump first referred to a poly market? He said something on this poly poll, or something along those lines. He didn't know how it's really called, but he tried to reference where, like, the standard polls were saying that Harris was in favor, or was like in the lead. Poly market was the only sort of outlier, big outlier to that, saying, hey, actually, Trump has bigger chances of winning the election. So then Trump talked about it. And the, I mean, it's been for forever that politicians and media reference polls and use it as an argument. And voters also have used polls to inform themselves about who's likely to win and who's not. So in that sense, on the one hand, there's nothing new. Poly market is just another tool that shows in some way what's likely to happen and what not, just as the traditional uh, polls tried to do. However, what is different, and you've just pointed to that, right, is that the actors in the real world out there have a unique opportunity to also influence poly market because you can't influence a poll that easily. You can't change people's minds just by making quote like there's a huge lag in people responding to a poll, I would imagine, and measuring and so on. While Polymarket gives you an instantaneous in an instant a reaction to what's happening, and therefore there's this very unusual incentive where um, you can influence the market, the prediction market. Now, however, it's a double-edged sword. For instance, when Mamdani has been speaking about prediction markets, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't listen carefully, but I think he was saying, uh, let's not focus on the prediction market odds because we have work to do. And here
Mhm.
comes the risk. If people believe that Mamdani is definitely winning, they might be less inclined and less motivated to actually go and vote. So it might be bad for Mamdani for the price to be really, really high because he needs to motivate his base and he needs to motivate the voters to actually go, and especially the undecided voters. And sometimes the sense of urgency that Mamdani might be losing will actually be a motivating factor for people to go. So it's in a way a double-edged sword where it's not necessarily good for Mamdani for the poly market or Kalshi be saying that he's got 90 or 95% chance of winning. Maybe 60 or 70 would be better for him because it will be easier to motivate the voters. So in that sense, it's a double-edged sword and it has advantages and disadvantages from my perspective. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's just another factor that you have to think about when you're trading these markets. And it's, it doesn't hurt the market at all. It's just another thing that you have to consider. These cycle, how the, it's not like we're just observing these guys in a vacuum. Like they
Yeah,
they can affect the market in turn. But you just tie that into your trades, right? You just kind of,
exactly.
yeah. So
And
I
and
think, oh, go ahead.
Mhm. And here to tie back to your point about timing, when to enter the market. Um, Markets usually overreact strongly to the news. A news comes out, Mamdani says something, someone else says something, and there's an overreaction because before people digest and understand the context of what's being said, they often take a quick action thinking that this piece of information is more significant than it is. And therefore, a good trader thinks twice before acting on a news. And that's why having priors is something very important. What happens if that person says this, or this person drops out of the race? What happens if we see these and these numbers? How does that change our fair value? And then being prepared for news as it comes out so that we as traders, we're not taken by surprise and make a emotional move, but rather we can use it as an opportunity when other people are overreacting because they overestimate the importance of a quote by someone or something happening, and then you buy, you know, the opposite position when there is an overreaction in the market. So that's one of the points around when to enter the market. Yeah, I mean the old saying, right? To buy the dip and sell the top, or however you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just one last question on the NYC mayoral election, just because it's coming up really soon.
Mhm.
And then I want to kind of get into your Netherlands play
Mm.
because that happened today and that was crazy. But I'm just curious, like, so Mamdani dipped a little bit from I think it was like pretty high. It's now at 88%. I think it might not be there anymore. Do
Yeah.
you think that this is kind of still a lock? Do you think this is a good, where like what's your kind of assessment of the situation right now? I think the reason he dipped was just because of I don't know why. I think there might have been like I don't know. I saw something about like yeah, I'm not sure the exact reason, like foreign donors or something, like last minute FUD for the before the election. But I'm just curious on your take on that.
Mm. Yeah. So my thinking here is, so first of all, regarding the dip. I'm also not exactly 100% sure. I mean, of course, there's early voting, and people are analyzing early voting and the patterns in it and trying to figure that out. But there was one of the journalists that came out and said that there will be something really big dropping last minute that could sway the race and have a potential to make Cuomo win without revealing what this was. So there was a rumor around that. And now, is this a lock? Because this is the most important question, right? And I have a very sizable position on Mamdani winning. Um, Realistically speaking, for Cuomo to have a chance of winning, Curtis would have to drop out of the race. It's really hard to imagine Mamdani losing with both Cuomo and Curtis remaining in the race. So a question arises: how likely is Curtis dropping? And my read on that guy is, just from few impressions that I have of him, he's not coming from the money. He's a rather modest guy. He seems to be motivated by his ideology, the things that he believes in. He's running as a Republican in a Democratic city where he doesn't have a chance to win from the beginning, and still engages with his campaign fully and wholeheartedly. Uh, he doesn't come across like a guy who would be convinced by some sort of arguments that he should be helping here Cuomo and help in the battle against the socialist communist evil guy Mamdani that is gonna destroy the city. If Curtis was to drop out, I think that would have happened much earlier than now. This feels like a really weird moment in a campaign to drop just a few days before the election, after all the effort and after all the work he's done. He even tweeted today or yesterday that he's not going anywhere in response on Twitter to someone saying that he might be dropping out. So my read is that there's less than 5% chance of Curtis dropping out of the race. And with Curtis stealing, stealing potential votes that Como would have gotten if Curtis was not in the race, right? Um, in that sense, it still feels like a lock. And I mean, we should be observing the early vote to get verification of that and interpret the numbers as they're coming in. That's going to be crucial right now. But I feel quite comfortable with this position.
Yeah, I mean, patternistically, I also feel like it's interesting. Like in the few elections that I've observed on Polymarket, and you've obviously had way more screen time with Polymarket than I have. I got in like a few months ago, but in the few elections that I've observed, things tend to change at the very end. So I don't know. There could be like a psychological thing where people are like, kind of like last minute, maybe they get a little shaky.
Mm.
Um, but I think you also bring up a very good point, like the fundamentals. I totally agree with you on Curtis too. I mean, I think like the guy's an ideologue.
Yeah,
I think that if he was offered money to depart, it probably has happened already, and we would have seen it. So
yeah,
I think I totally agree with you on the fundamentals, and then the rest of it is just what are the demographics right now in New York? What is the current polling look?
exactly.
So I think that's a very good point. Okay, so now I want to move into your win today. I don't know if you're able to kind of share your screen. I can share my screen just to show the craziness of this. I just want people to see how crazy this looked with the
Yeah, do
Netherlands.
that. Hmm.
But it's let me share my screen right here. Yeah, so today you had a big one, and it's interesting because I was looking through your past trades, and a lot of your biggest wins have been in these kind of smaller election markets. Like I think you won
Mm.
big in the Norwegian election market as well.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
let me pull this up real quick. Uh, um, all right, where is it? I just had it.
I can share it too in case you can find it, John.
Yeah, why don't you share? I'm having a tough time getting it. Oh
Okay.
wait, I can get it
Hmm.
from your Twitter profile. Um, yeah. Oh, now maybe you should share it. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's all right. Let me go into that. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, the election is not over, as we can see. There's still a question whether the exit poll are correct or not. So, just to fill everyone in on what has been happening, it's currently 11:30 p.m. in the Netherlands, and the parliamentary election voting has finished at 9 p.m., so 2.5 hours ago. And we have a pretty solid exit poll that was predicting two-seat advantage of D66 over PVV. And we'll still see whether that exit poll proves to be accurate or not. As the municipal election results are coming in, it actually seems that it's dropped in the last, as we talked in the last hour. So I guess there are some results coming in that might be suggesting that PVV has still a chance of coming on top. Either way, what makes this election extremely fascinating is that merely 4 days ago, you could have bought D66 for 1%. And right now it's worth 75. So that's times 75 the profit you would have made if you invested in D66 just 4 days ago. So how is that possible? How can we have 86% confidence just a few days ago that PVV would win, and then have a complete flip from a party that no one believed had a significant chance of winning this election? And here comes, mm, yeah, for every election, there is something very specific about it that we need to understand. What are the patterns in a specific country? What sort of patterns do we see in the past elections? And Netherlands is a very specific place where, first of all, the political landscape is extremely rich. There's a lot of parties that enter the parliament. There's 10 plus parties that is winning some seats in the parliament in the Netherlands this election cycle. And Another important factor is that what we see historically in the election 2023 and 2021 and 2017 is that there's an extremely unusually high percentage of undecided voters until the very last day. Netherlands is one of the most flexible country when it comes to people deciding on whom they're going to vote. So I think still yesterday, 40% of voters were undecided on which party they're going to vote. Can you imagine that? A day before the election, 40% of people don't know on whom they're going to vote. That's really, really substantial.
Yeah.
And that, hmm?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So in that sense, I don't think we can find another country that would be similar to Netherlands. Uh, and what is the main implication of that? The main implication of that is that if you look at the polls few weeks in advance, um, how much worth are they if close to half of the people will be deciding last day? That means that we're expecting a high variance in the possible outcomes of the election itself. And what we actually saw in previous years is that often in just the last few days before the election, there would be one party that would gain a lot because the undecided voters would consolidate around that party. And that's again what happened today. There was a last minute consolidation around D66, which might bring them to winning this election. We still have to see. And yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I just find that fascinating. I mean, it's very, very rare that you get that type of opportunity this close to like resolution time, I think. Um,
Exactly.
like very rare. But and it like I do think this is why people like election markets. To go back to the New York election,
Mm.
if we remember, like Mamdani was the underdog for a long
Exactly.
time. But it was like I think it was like a week before resolution. It wasn't like
Mm.
the day of. It was just like it was like there was some misinformation here about like how much support Cuomo had versus the progressives. So I think, yeah. So election markets do this quite a bit. I think more than people like to admit. But this particular one is like very crazy. And I think, yeah, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and that's why we love prediction markets because uh, they offer this opportunity that you can, yeah, if you have an edge in something, you can actually make a substantial profit. And I think Netherlands election here is a great example. So myself, and here I want to give a shout out to Gopfan and Ciro, two great election traders on Polymarket, who bought each around 60, 70,000 of D66 shares for 1 or 2 cents each. And those guys basically did the very smart thing. They're looking at the variance. They're like, oh, uh, there's going to be a lot of movement. So we want to buy basically all the parties at the lowest price possible because they might spike. And myself, I made a mistake. I also early on bet against the favorite, against the PVV, because of that variance reason. But I bought the second biggest yes, third biggest yes, and fourth biggest yes. So I invested in three other parties that I thought could win against the frontrunner PVV. But D66 was the fifth biggest party, and I did not believe that the variance could be big enough to push D66 over the winning line. While those other guys were smarter than me and they realized that the variance is so huge that even D66 could make it and they took position on it. So myself, I only entered on D66 yesterday, and that was after I watched the debate in the Dutch television, where the leader of D66 had a stellar performance. He was very confident, uh, well, like rehearsed performance. He spoke well, clearly, with confidence, with a smile. He was really making a positive impression on me as a debate performance. And given the momentum that D66 had over the last few days in the polls, that created a very clear possibility that the voters would consolidate around him and his party because that was the party that was uh, being the rising star at this moment. So if you wanted to vote against the right-wing PVV party and you have a few parties to choose from, then you might consolidate as an undecided voter for D66 because of their popularity rising and uh, their chairman performing so well in the debates and being so likable and handsome as well. So I thought, okay, with this beautiful performance and them having a great momentum, this is good reason enough to be buying up to 40 cents at least for them winning the election. And therefore I ended up, I think, with 25,000 shares altogether for D66, and I already cashed in most of it to realize the profit because of course there's margin of error and maybe the exit polls will not be accurate. So you have to also decide whether you want to stay or not. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, amazing trade. I'm curious too. Like, that's really interesting that these sorts of debate events have such a bigger impact in these more multi-party countries where it's like,
Mm.
like, do you find that? Do you find that like these events actually, like here it's not. I mean, I mean, like the
Yeah.
New York mayor election, there was a little bit of volatility after the mayoral debate, but not a whole lot. Do you find that it makes a bigger impact in these other countries? And also, the second part to this question, um,
Mm.
what other countries are can like trade like this in terms of?
Mm. Yeah. So yes, I do agree. Uh, I would think here about polarization. And the amount of undecided voters. In the political landscapes where there's a huge polarization and perhaps not that many undecided voters because everyone has a strong opinion, then debate has little influence. Everyone hears what they want to hear. Their candidate is speaking the truth or doing the right thing and speaking up. And people are not really listening to a debate in order to make up their mind. They're listening to cheer up for their candidate and hear about their policies. So, for instance, when we had Harris-Trump debate, I think their first one, um, I think if I remember right, Harris was praised for a really good performance, and Trump was announced as a loser of that debate. And we saw on Polymarket a few percent increase in Harris. And then that reverses back to the mean because over some days, that sort of imagined effect that, oh, this debate will now, like Harris performed so well, so she has higher chance of winning. No, she doesn't because there's very few people to actually be convinced of anything. Uh, while in Netherlands, where you have 40% of people undecided the day before the election and 70% undecided like a week ago or so, don't quote me on numbers, but it's been even bigger like some days ago. There, the debate actually can sway voters because people are not entrenched in Netherlands in their political positions as they are in a country like United States. And therefore, debates are much more meaningful because they can, and also speaking to your point about multi-party system, uh, people are not so familiar with every leader of each party because there's like 10 plus of them. And therefore, you can actually gain traction and become more recognized and more visible if you perform well. And more people will hear about you and more people will get attracted to you. So in that sense, again, that debate in a country like Netherlands has much more potential to sway voters. So in fact, to summarize, I think in the United States, if one candidate performs really well in a debate, I would be considering betting against them. To
Yeah.
bet against the spike in their popularity and bet on the reversal to the mean. While in a country like Netherlands, I might I actually place a substantial bet on Yetten, or that's the leader of the D66, both becoming prime minister. I made a bet, and I made a bet on D66 winning because I was inspired by their behavior, by his behavior in the debate and the momentum of the party and the polls.
So we have a question. We have one question. I know we are talking about this earlier. We have a question from Polymarket History. I'll just put it on the screen right here.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you know anything about this Mega ETH sale, but I think there's a market on Mega ETH sale.
Hmm.
Have you been following this market at all? I don't know if I have, but
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. I wish I could speak to that, but I haven't followed it yet. And also,
yeah,
I'm still in the process of catching up after essentially 3 weeks of holiday, so I'm not too familiar with the newer trades. I saw some people in my network making some trades there, but I haven't looked at all at it yet. I was too consumed with Netherlands and Fed decision market and some other things. Hmm.
yeah, the Fed decision worked out really well too. That I saw that you were betting yes on that, so congrats on kind of it was kind of a lock, but at the same time,
Yeah,
I still like whenever I see those markets, I always just put down a little bit of money on the other side, just in
yeah,
case, just because the win is so big.
yeah,
Because, yeah,
and exactly, and that's, and that's an interesting point to talk about, right? Because so if you look at this graph, right, this is one of my accounts, and uh, so th this graph, the horizontal axis represents where do I buy at, so and where do I sell at. So you see that the majority of my buys are in the around 80 or 90 cents per share, which means uh, I'm living the philosophy of nothing ever happens, sort of. And and that's because of the bias that I think you spoke into yourself. Um, for instance, I bought 30,000 shares. So 30,000, like I paid what? $29,500 that the decision uh, by the Fed today would be 25 BPS change. And a lot of people are asking, right, oftentimes, hey, so you're investing or putting $29,500 to win $500? That's insane. And um, the reason here is that it's much more attractive to multiply your money by a huge factor. And therefore, especially with lower amounts, it feels, oh, I can risk $100 to win, $10,000 and so on. Um, However, the question at the end of the day is always, what's the fair value? And if the fair value is 99.5, which was my assessment for the Fed decision, then buying at 98.5 in the long run gives you money. And therefore, I'm happily, as this graph shows, picking quite some money from people who bet on low likelihood events that give high return, because people are overpaying for the odds offered in those markets. Hmm.
yeah, and I think that as prediction markets kind of scale, more and more people are going to take those low bets just because they look attractive. They're coming from the meme coin world. I mean, that's just what
Yeah,
people want to kind of bet on. So I think that it's interesting. Like another way to fade, another way to bet on nothing ever happening, is to just bet on those really high probability things, which
yeah,
is a strategy that I might start using as well. Uh,
yeah,
cool. So we're almost up on time. I just want to give like a closing kind of remark from you, just real quick. If there's any markets you're looking at right now that are kind of
mm,
interesting to you or that you're playing, that you kind of want to talk a little bit about.
yeah. So as I said, I'm back from the holiday, but let's take a look what's happening here. So, I think Venezuela is something that I'll be observing in the upcoming days and weeks. And um, yeah, here's I think that's really it. A lot of things are finishing now in October, and I have to take a look what to be investing in from November onwards. But an interesting bet that still has substantial value, in my opinion, is the US-Venezuela military engagement by end of October. Because, and again, those are, seemingly not huge profits, but if we pay 96.6 right now for this one, and this will resolve in 3 days, that's more than 1 percentage point a day, which is a great annualized return. That's insane, right? If you keep making 1% every day on your money, that you're gonna have a steep growth curve. And here, very simple. Trump is abroad, and it seems that he promised to update the senators uh, before uh, ordering a strike on land in Venezuela. That's something that we've learned from who was that? Lindsey Graham. He said that he's waiting for Trump to return and brief the senators about a potential attack on the land. So it sounded like, and he said he spoke to Trump the day before. So he basically gave out the alpha. Lindsey Graham said that essentially there will be no strike before Trump comes back. And Trump is on the Asian summit right now in South Korea. So there you go. So in that sense, this seems like free money to me. The more interesting question becomes what's going to happen until end of the year. And here for now, I have a position that there might be a strike. Uh, and it's a tricky one. I'm not feeling exactly comfortable with that bet. So I might be wanting to get out. I mean, Trump has been threatening already numerous times potential strikes in Venezuela. Nothing has happened so far. Lindsey Graham spoke quite bullishly about potential attacks on the ground. I mean, clearly they don't like Maduro. This whole drug trafficking seems like an excuse. Majority of the drugs in the United States come from the Mexican border and then a large portion for the Pacific coast. Like Venezuela plays very little role overall in the drugs coming to the US. So this is largely an excuse, and it's much bigger topics around oil and neighboring Guyana and so on. And they would happily see a regime shift. The refineries in the US actually are quite suitable for working with heavy, dirty oil, such as that found in Venezuela. So if they could have a meaningful economic relationship with Venezuela and be able to purchase their oil, that would be beneficial for the United States. So in that sense, there's quite some incentive from the United States to cause regime change. And I think the calculus here will be how likely are they in succeeding? And they will be evaluating that within the administration. What we've seen with Iran is, uh, they bombed the hell out of Iran, Israel, together with some support from the US. And I mean, there's a phenomenon of rallying around the flag. If you feel threatened, you might actually rally around your leader that you otherwise don't like. Uh, what we learned from polling and political history is that whenever a country goes to war or is threatened in some way, usually there's a huge upswing in support for the ruling party or the ruling president and so on. People rally around the flag when there's existential question around the country's future. And as such, the regime in Iran didn't get weaker because of all the attacks and destruction in Iran. It potentially got actually stronger. And so that's the same risk with Venezuela is that, okay, we can, US can bomb Venezuela, and what effect will it have? Will it make Maduro stronger or weaker? And that's, I believe, the calculus they will be having, and and I'm not sure what's going to come out of that equation. They might try to do something and it feels plausible. That's why for now I'm holding a yes, but it's far from decided. I'll be definitely diving into that and trying to understand the pros and cons here. Um, and again, I think that's sort of like where the edge you can get in prediction markets is trying to look beyond the obvious, right? Trump talks about the war on drugs and so on, and he says they're going to attack, but there's much more to the story. And the more we can understand about that story, the more informed predictions we can make.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And then yeah, we've been looking into this market as well. We wrote a post about it, but this is an interesting market just because of the it's one of those markets that you got to deep dive in right now. I think.
Yeah. What was your conclusion?
I right now I don't have a conclusion.
Hmm.
we basically thought that that military engagement would be unlikely, at least near term. But the conclusion for December 31st, I don't really know yet. To be honest with you, I think we're probably going to try and do a deeper dive on this in the coming weeks. It seems to be holding where it is right now at 53. It hasn't moved a whole.
Yeah,
I mean, it was at 60 like a few days ago, but I think it's gone down a little bit. Um,
yeah.
so I don't know.
Mm.
Cool, cool. So yeah, so I think so. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you coming on. I mean, there was some great information that you gave, especially on the election stuff. That's
Mm.
just fascinating. And you have a Substack too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you write on that as well. And
Yeah, I haven't been too active with the Substack, but now that I'm back from holiday, I would like to get back to it and also post on Twitter. I mean, clearly, and also, I mean, you're the best example of that. The space around prediction markets is growing. It's a beautiful tool. It has a lot of potential, and it is bound to just get bigger and bigger over time. So establishing yourself just as you're doing, um, it's helpful. I think it's the time to, to get some presence and talk about prediction markets. It's going to be a beautiful growing space, I believe. So it's good to capture the momentum.
yeah, yeah, big upside with prediction markets. There might be like we'll see what happens. I said this to some of my team a few days ago, but there might be a little bit of a decline, a little bit of a bearish decline, maybe
Mm,
over winter or something like that.
mm.
But I think that as we get into next year, which is definitely, at least in the United States, it's a total political on season. I
Yeah.
think you're going to start to see it ramp up massively.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, when the election in November, the presidential American election happened, a lot of people in my prediction circles were quite scared of there being a drought and uh, money going away and there being no opportunities. And we were fearing that, the prediction markets were big leading up to election, but the election is being gone and we're gonna just have nothing to bet on. And we're proven wrong. There was less traffic, but the it rebounded much quicker than we all anticipated, bringing even more opportunities than we had before the election. So for now, the resilience of the prediction market is proving to be quite good. Of course, we're going to be having ups and downs as we go, but my belief is that the overall trajectory points upward.
oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
Mm.
Um, Cool, man. Well, yeah, well, good having you on. Let's definitely do something again next time. I'd like, I'm trying to get like regular people together for panels, but
Mm.
like some of the information you gave was crazy. So I'm just happy that you came on, and yeah, hopefully we can do
Mm.
it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to chat again in the future. Thanks for
Cool.